The Prophet ﷺ used rational arguments to prove the existence of God and also to show that Islam is true. These arguments are everywhere in the Quran. You've probably read these verses, but you didn't realize the argument that they were making. I'm going to show you one passage in the Quran that uses the argument that you've just seen, the argument from contingency. These verses are about the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. The Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam is known by the scholars as Nabiyul Hujjah, which means the prophet of rational arguments. He was once with his people, and his people, they used to worship the stars, the moon, the sun, and he had a conversation with them. He said, when the night overspread, the Quran says, فَلَمَّا جَنَّ عَلَيْهِ اللَّيْلِ, when the night overspread him, رَأَى كَوْكَبًا, he saw a star. His people used to worship those stars. So he decided to go along with them. He said, هَذَا رَبِّي, this is my Lord, this is my God. He's not doing it because he's confused. He knows what's going to happen. He knows the end of the story. What he's saying is, let me go along with you. Let me assume that what you're saying is true. Let's see what happens. He waited, and the star set. It disappeared. It changed. Change is a sign of contingency, because when something changes, it needs something to make it change. It needs something to lean on. What is that thing that it's leaning on? What's that thing that's making it change? Well, it can't be another contingent thing. It can't be something else that changes. It has to be something that doesn't depend on anything. That's what we learned in the argument from contingency. I want you to imagine a long line of people. They're all leaning against one another. The first person is leaning behind, being supported by the second person, who falls over behind him, and he's being supported by the person behind him. And it goes on like this, one by one. And if there's nothing at the end of the chain that is holding them all up, they're all going to fall. There has to be something at the end of the line. A mountain, for example, that's supporting them all, but's not being supported by anything else. That is the being. We call it a necessary being, the one who's not contingent, doesn't need anything, doesn't depend on anything, on whom the universe depends. That's what Sayyidina Ibrahim is looking for, and he doesn't find it in the stars. And he's telling his people, these stars are not worthy of your worship because they aren't doing anything. They're depending on something else. That's why he said to his people, La uhibbul afirin. I don't like things that set. I don't like things that change. I don't like things. I don't worship things that are dependent. Then he saw the moon. He said, well, this one's bigger. This is my God. Again, he's going along with them. But again, the moon set. And he used the same argument. He said that it's dependent, therefore it can't be God. God is the one who doesn't need anything. He's not dependent on anything. And he said, if my Lord doesn't guide me, I will be of those who are lost. And then he did the same thing with the sun, and he came to the same conclusion. He showed them why they shouldn't be worshiping idols and why they shouldn't be worshiping any contingent thing in the universe, because none of these things are God. None of these things are the thing that we all depend on. Now, people don't worship idols anymore. Now, they believe that science explains everything. But what do they mean when they say that science explains everything? What they mean is that the things in the universe, atoms, molecules, laws of nature, these are the things that make everything the way that it is. This is what everything depends on. But these things are dependent. They're leaning on other things. Atoms and molecules need something to give them their properties, and scientists search for what those things are. When you come and you point to anything in the universe as an explanation for anything else, you say that air pressure is why the wind blows. Well, air pressure It's contingent. It's dependent on something else. It leans on something else. And so even in our modern age, when we say that the things in the universe are made the way that they are by other things in the universe, and we clothe it in a scientific vocabulary, we're doing the same thing that the people of the Prophet Ibrahim were doing. And the same argument that he used against his people applies with just as much force to the people that we see around us. It's a powerful argument. It's in the Quran. It's relevant today. This argument is present in many verses of the Quran. When we say Allahu Samad in a surah that all of us have memorized, what does it mean? As-Samad means that Allah is the one on whom everything depends, and He doesn't depend on anything. And these verses were revealed when an idol worshipper came to the Prophet ﷺ saying that my gods, my idols are made of this wood or gold or jewels. And so what's your God made of? And the surah, Suratul Ikhlas, a surah that we all know, is saying to the idol worshippers that these things are contingent and God is not contingent. This argument is everywhere in the Quran. We go through many other verses in a course that I teach. It's called Why Islam is True. We also look at 3 other rational arguments that are present in the Quran. And when you look at all of these rational arguments together, you can see without a shadow of a doubt that Islam is true, that it's true that La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When we see that our religion in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam is based on rational, bulletproof arguments, it completely transforms our belief. Check out the course, www.whyislamistrue.com. The course includes bite-sized recorded lessons that you can complete at your own pace and live, interactive, drop-in classes every 2 weeks where you can personally ask me your questions. There are learning activities, real-world application assignments that you complete online, very creatively designed. And there's also a Never Left Alone Q&A forum where you can ask any questions you have and get an answer within 24 hours or less.